Backlog.
August, what's going on with these HBO Max merger? Can you explain it?
Bruh.
Because there's been so much drama going on with this stuff that I don't
This is nuts, and I didn't even finish the amount of research I wanted to do on it. But long story short, AT&T owns HBO, and the Warner Brothers properties. They also own Discovery. The HBO Warner Brothers properties are technically bigger, profit wise, but from what I understand, they're Discovery is a successful small channel that runs well on its tiny budget. We'll just put them in charge of HBO and everything under it. And it's yo, Discovery does reality TV. What are you doing? No, this is insane. Essentially HBO Max and Discovery are going to merge into one channel. I think this is insane because HBO Max has its own very, very popular content. I would have said it's pound for pound, money for money, the best deal you were going to get in a streaming service.
That's even
and
better.
now they're about to drop stuff and add reality TV shows instead of premium content. Not only that, but the guy they put in charge of the new HBO Max Discovery combined, I can't remember. There's a name. I think David Zaslav has been bruh, look at this balance sheet, which is the same thing. He's look at this balance sheet, which is a smart thing to do as a business person. Because apparently, no, I don't know if anyone noticed, but HBO Max was $53 billion in debt. They had 10 years to pay it back. But yeah, that's still crazy much in debt. But what he's decided to do is he's okay, so let's cut costs. How are they cutting costs? They're going around just absolutely axing projects. Left, right, and center, everything is getting sniped out. It is leaving a lot of people really, really nervous because there's a lot of very popular, if not high revenue shows that got axed just because of this.
I mean, what was it, Batgirl and Scooby-Doo being the...
So the latest things about this is they're not even just cutting TV shows anymore. I could go through the list of TV shows that were cut. I'm sure a lot of people already know about it. Some of them. Flash is finally going to end. I think a lot of people are actually kind of happy about that one, but they cut Legends tomorrow. People are bummed about that. There's a bunch of stuff. There's a million things. I'll pull up the list later. But long story short, they've gotten to the point where he's okay, so we have about 3 or 4 movies that are already basically in the can in post-production, they're being finished. Yeah, let's cut those 2. Let's take the tax write-off. Not even release them. So this is getting nuts. Yeah.
For my own little bit of research, I saw they also cut about 70% of their workforce.
Oh yeah,
it's
big,
layoffs.
Big changes. Yeah, huge layoffs.
Wasn't it
HBO seems to be a sinking ship.
Well, I mean, it's honestly it makes me nervous about the whole streaming industry because I'm yo, is streaming actually a blow up? No filter. Is having these big silos of content, but not having the constant revenue growth year over year actually going to be the death of a lot of these companies? Because it's I didn't know HBO Max was $53 billion in debt. I mean, they have the best content library in existence. That's no lie. That's just the reality. But the fact that they had to go $53 billion debt to do it, okay, so maybe the current model, as much as we want to love it, just wasn't sustainable. Or maybe in the age of mega corporations where there's only basically 4 corporations that own all of the media, they've hit the ceiling and they haven't realized they've hit the ceiling and there's no more money. So it's such a weird problem. So many industries coming together and technology changing, but I didn't know it was this bad. I mean, Netflix has its own problems. I think they're very obvious in the fact that they spend a ton of money crazily and on bad projects. HBO wasn't doing that for the most part. Most of the projects they invest in are good. Did they make money always? That's a different story. But I think HBO always makes quality products for the most part. And the fact that even they're hurting, I don't know. The whole streaming industry might be kind of not as profitable as I think a lot of studios were led to believe, which is going to be interesting in the future. But yeah, I mean, what did you guys have to say on this? Because there's so many angles the story could take.
Well, as for the streaming industry thing, I think things have been split a little too much, and that's what's causing like this collapse. Because before, like for example, with like Netflix, you would have all kinds of shit on there, right? And then like those companies are like, wait, we can make our own streaming service. Pull that shit off of Netflix. Pull that shit off of Netflix.
Yeah,
And that just keeps happening with all the various streaming services. They're like, oh wait, we can make our own streaming service. Pull that off of there.
rip golden age Netflix.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
I think that was always maybe going to happen, although that's hell of annoying. And I
Oh,
agree.
it happens to Netflix, happens to
Yeah.
Hulu, it happens to HBO a little bit too, even.
Yeah.
Like,
But I mean,
it's
yeah. But
a big
HBO had
problem.
it is a big problem. But I mean, look at HBO. They almost had the biggest library of just stuff because they were a media
Yeah.
company. They'd always been a media company. And the
Yeah.
fact that even they're hurting, where's all the money going? Like, yeah, I'm sure you could probably tie this into a conversation about capitalism and like, well, obviously you're overpaying your executives. Yeah, cool. I mean, even Zaslav is getting like I think $264 million compensation package, which I'm like, that's a lot of money. I mean, granted, he's trying to save a multi-billion-dollar company. So, but at the same
Yeah.
time, but like it's a crazy conversation in that even I would say what the HBO to me before I heard about all this news was the best streaming service. And the fact that even they're not doing well, that kind of surprises me. So, I mean, yeah, it's gonna be kind of interesting going forward to see how this shakes out. Like, I think they're gonna even start siloing up their content where like you have to have different subscriptions to parts of HBO to get all of the same content.
Fuck
Whereas
that.
HBO, no, like the guy even said that like he thinks it was a mistake putting all of their content into one package, which is what consumers want.
Yeah.
So now he's going to divvy it back up to have people pay for more. And I'm like, I don't know if people are going to want to do that.
Yeah.
Especially after you'd all put it in one place already. But I mean, like, again, as a business guy, he's got a point. I mean, the fact that they're in so much debt means there was something fundamentally wrong with the business model. Maybe I don't know. It's all very interesting. And like, I feel on the one hand, I feel really bad for a lot of content creators, especially like the director of Batgirl. I mean, his movie was basically done. He was just waiting on
it was pretty much done.
That was Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. Same as Scooby-Doo. Those movies were done.
Yeah.
They were just waiting on post-production polish, and now they'll probably never see the light of day. And that's crazy to me. Like, it used to be like conventional
they just threw away
thinking.
money though. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, it's kind of nuts. Like, conventional thinking was that even if a movie wasn't great, polish it up as much as you can and release it on streaming, and at least you have more content. Zaslav's going above and beyond, and he's like, listen, even if we put it on streaming, it's not going to make money.
It's not going to make money.
And I'm like, that seems crazy, but he might honestly have an argument there in that, like, it might have, like, I've seen a lot of the articles on this. I'm like, if the movie was that bad, it might have been smarter to take the tax write-off. Because so many people, like, they had a test screening for this movie, and it went so poorly, they're like, I don't even see why we need to release this. Like, they were literally like, okay, this movie is so bad, it's bad for the entire DC brand. Not even just the character of Batgirl, the DC brand itself.
Especially with
DC brand's already in shambles.
Exactly.
I can't even imagine how bad this movie is.
With they're recently announcing that they're going to do a reboot of the entire universe. I'm assuming they don't want to start that off on a bad footing with.
I don't even know if they're going to do that anymore. They're slowly walking that back. They're slowly walking that back where they're like, listen, people like Henry. Why don't we keep Henry? Listen, people like Batfleck. Why don't we keep Batfleck? So I don't even know if they're going to do a full reboot at this point because things have gotten so bad. It's like, if we do a reboot, why will people have any confidence in that? It'll be good.
But why don't they just they could easily combine things? So it doesn't.
Well, I mean, that's the weird thing is that like the way they've been talking is that they're like, listen, we still believe in DC as a brand. We want it to be as good as Marvel, but that means we actually have to start focusing on it and being honest about what's working and what's not. Which is honestly what they should have been doing a long time ago. Like they always had something like a Feige being like, this is the dumb idea, don't do it. Or this is a good idea, do it. But no, they wanted to act like a typical Hollywood studio and look at the balance sheet of one movie instead of looking at it as an entire brand franchise. And because of that, they have a universe that doesn't even make sense with itself. Aquaman, the movie Aquaman has continuity conflicts with Justice League. Like, it's that bad. There's almost no internal consistency in the cinematic DC universe they've established so far. And not to mention, even a lot of the good movies feel like, a little corporate and soulless, but they just happen to be good.
Well, I mean, Suicide Squad also throws things into further turmoil. Like,
Yeah.
the Enchantress shit for like the other Suicide Squad was so major that it would be impossible to ignore, and yet it's never ever been mentioned.
I mean, Marvel does some
Sense.
bullshit like that too. Like the whole what's it called? Help me out. What are the beings from now? The Celestial popping up out of the ground, still not having been mentioned yet. Okay.
The Eternals? You're talking about the
Eternals. Yeah. So I'm like, there's a little bit of like,
Yeah, but who knows when that happened though?
Yeah, we don't even know the Eternals' proper timeline.
I think we're supposed to have a rough idea of it. But yeah, I mean, my point is that like DC has been so poorly managed compared to Marvel that at this point they're like, we don't know what we're gonna do, but we actually have to devote some resources into doing it right, which I respect. I respect.
Their comics are slumping too.
I mean, which is a bummer, but I mean, I think comics are slumping all over. I mean, even Marvel, which is doing some great stuff, is having a little bit of rough time with sales.
Oh yeah,
the stuff they're actually
Marvel's mostly doing some cringe shit, right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, I don't know.
No cringe shit. They backpedal.
Yeah. So they're famous for doing cringe shit, but the actual titles that are out right now, a lot of the X-Men stuff they're doing is amazing. It's some of the cool stuff they've done in years.
The comics.
Yeah, like
it's just that all that's getting highlighted is the cringe shit right now, which is causing some.
Well, yeah, I think that's the stuff that gets signal boosted.
Also, accessibility is not really there still for comics at a decent level.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I never see a marketing.
They're a bit in the dark ages right there.
Well, so that's what bugs me. That's what bugs me is because Netflix for Marvel Comics exists. It's called Marvel Unlimited. But do you ever see that shit marketed? No.
Nope.
Marvel doesn't have a marketing campaign for its comics. And I think the reason that's why comic sales do terribly is because no one fucking knows about them. It's ridiculous to me. Like, market your comics the same way you market your movies. And guess what? New comic fans. But it's like they still expect that the same people who have been reading their comics for 20 years are going to be the only people reading their comics. And it's like, well, no wonder your fucking budgets for comics keep failing is because you're not trying to bring in new fans. But
manga's also just crushing comics right now, in general.
Yeah, but I mean,
like, I don't have to deal with all this bullshit with manga. I can just
anime is mainstream, but I mean, even then, like, is there like a Crunchyroll for manga that exists? Like, is there like a paid, like a manga service? I don't even think that's
Crunchyroll has manga.
Oh, does it? Okay,
it's gonna be fused with Funimation now. They're doing the fusion dance.
I don't know. Like, let me try to pull up some more of the backstory and kind of finish through. Unless you wanted to move on, because like, I just want to talk about how they were canceling a bunch of more shows and stuff like that.
Like we've hit everything.
Yeah, I think we should move on because we really hit the most important stuff. And especially arguably if you like, I don't even know what we're gonna do for the Yell of the Week yet. Because there's like 3 things here, but
well, no, it's all Batgirl, which is related to the HBO stuff.
Yeah, so we'll come back. We'll come back to Batgirl, and then I feel like that's really, we don't need to tell people what else is being. They can look that up and But
there's a lot of popular
the big stuff. We listed the major stuff already though.
Most important stuff, and people are mad about the Batgirl thing, even though like. I'm sure none of them actually cared before.
If it was a shit movie, then I don't care anymore.
Oh no, it's like people are just coming up with reasons now that.
I mean, I would have liked to see it, even if it was a shit movie. But they were basically like, we're not even going to make it up on the marketing budget. Like, even if they just threw it to streaming, I would have liked to see it. But I mean, if they're thinking they're not going to make their money
sell
back,
it to Netflix.